Seeker, by a matte painter. Her name was Seeker 6, and she was one of 12 that was to be sent out in search of knowledge, so long ago that it even took her a full 2 seconds to bring up the memories. Before she had become a ship, she had had a great life. 4 children, 2 husbands, and a couple of lovers over the years had given her a full life, but it was her career in computer programming that gave her purpose. It was this purpose that brought her to become what she was now. She had been the lead programmer on the first 3 Seeker ships, with the promise that she would be allowed to become one of the 12. The first 2 were not fully autonomous, having to have crews, and were put into service as colony transports. By the 5th, all the bugs were worked out. This had taken her a little over 100 years, but it was a short time to ensure that when she became 6, she would have little problems taking control of it. 6 was the largest at the time, nearly 10 miles long, and 1.5 miles wide. 1 full mile was taken up with the faster-than-light drive. It may have been fast, but it was not without its limits. The jumps were limited to 100,000 miles at a time, any more it would heat up and implode. It was just short of her 200th birthday when they moved her brain into the cradle on the control deck of 6. Of course, they had put her to sleep to do this. It took them 2 full days to make all the connections, and another to check them. When she awoke, it was as if she had stepped into a new world. She had no regrets for the life she had left behind, but between the stars, she would often think about that time in her life, when she wasn't in deep sleep. Her mission was to roughly stay the same distance from the galactic center and search out knowledge of any kind, but most of all to look for life. She would always move in the galaxy's anti-spin direction to shorten the flight time. This didn't seem like much, but after millennia it would add up to light years. It took her almost a year to be able to fully control the ship. After a dozen trips to the nearest colonies, she was proficient. It took over 200 ship hours to reach the first system that her race had never been to before. There were only 4 planets, 2 rocky, and 2 gas giants. She spent a year studying the system, using all of the equipment she had. She had made a few mistakes and had even lost a drone, but true to her nature she learned from her mistakes. They were little new knowledge, but there was much that gave proof to many theories her race had. She would compile any new information and send it back to her home world every 10 days, using subspace communications. The first 10,000 years she had received updates back, then they just stopped. She had no clue why, but this did not stop her from sending hers. She spent many hours in wonder as to why, and there really was only one reason why, and that was her race no longer existed. This made her feel sad, but it would not stop her from following her programming. She contained all the knowledge of her race within her, up till the time she left. Her race would not be forgotten as long as she or one of the other Seekers were still out there. She had no way of telling if the others were still on the mission, or even if the other 4 had even been sent out. Maybe sometime she would see about contacting one of them some way. She had learned a lot the first 1,000 systems that she visited but had found no life of any kind. She had found all the ingredients but never mixed the proper way. She had studied many strange worlds. There was one that when it was close to its star was molten rock, and then solid rock when farthest in its orbit. She had found what she had thought was what was left of a gas giant after its sun had expanded, blowing the gas away to reveal a diamond 7,000 miles in diameter. She had sent drones to get samples from most worlds. It was on the 4010th world that she first found life. It was only microbial, but it was the first signs of life, other than the home world any had ever found. She spent a full 2 years learning all she could about it. That first world with life was so long ago for her, she now had samples from over 100 worlds of all kinds of life. Most of the life was microbial or plant, but there were a few that had fish and lower forms of animal life. In all the millennia she had never found any signs of an upper form of life. She had come to the conclusion that her home world was the only one to have produced intelligent life so far. This made the part of her corporeal mind sad, and she was experiencing depression, something she had not experienced since becoming 6. Her programming was all that was keeping her going after so many millennia. Her corporeal part had all but given up after the second eon. None had really known how long a brain would last merged with a seeker. 2 million years was a long time for any form of life to live. She decided to try to contact the other seekers before she lost herself to her programming completely. It was a simple message, sent out on all communication bands she could think of. It was set to transmit each time the ship stopped between light jumps to cool the drive. Once done, she went into a deep sleep for what she thought would be her last time. It was a small world that was mostly water, not really all that different than a few million others in the galaxy, but what did make it different was that in this world there was an upper form of life, or one that was trying hard to become one. It was the month of July, and the night sky was clear as Nicholas sat at his desk working on his radio receiver. He was working on trying to give his race an unlimited supply of free energy. It had been his life's work. He almost missed hearing the signal, being lost in his thoughts. He jumped to his feet when he noticed that it was rhythmic. In the days that followed, he told a couple of close friends, and before long the story was out. On August 26, 1888, he had to make a statement. The changes I noted were taking place periodically, and with such a clear suggestion of number and order that they were not traceable to any cause then known to me. The feeling is constantly growing on me that I had been the first to hear the greeting of one planet to another. From then on, the world's governments painted him as being touched in some way. One of the world's greatest minds was reduced to a penniless recluse and died in historical obscurity for telling the truth.